All right, cool. So again, my name is Brad Stoller. I've been in the industry over a dozen years. It's my 14th year in solar. I did own my own solar sales and installation company for over a decade. I made my exit from that a little bit over a year and a half ago. Since then, I've been working as a consultant and a coach in the industry for both big companies and guys who are doing startups and just getting into the industry. What we're here to do, this is our 5-day solar challenge. So what the goal is for you guys and for us is by the end of this challenge, you guys will have everything you need to know, one, is this a good industry for you? And two, how to get started and start, making your first commissions. So I want to first talk about what this is not, though, because I always like to kind of allow you guys to sort of self-evaluate and kick yourself out if this isn't for you. So just to be clear, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not the ad you saw on your phone that says the easiest way to make money on the internet in 2024. This is not that. If that's what you're looking for, no judgment, just leave, because it's not that. Okay. What is solar? What we're talking about? This is a real product for real people. It's a real opportunity. It is people who are ambitious and willing to work hard can do very, very well. And I'll share some stories, my own story, people I know, people I've worked with, some of my clients, on what they're doing. But again, this isn't like your click here, do nothing, and I'm going to somehow close my eyes and make money industry. This is just not that. For me, that's never what I wanted. And again, I'll allow people to figure out. If that doesn't work for you, then no judgment, guys. But what can solar do for you? It can give you financial freedom. It can give you time freedom. It's an industry. It's a place where you and your friends and your family can be proud of it. Most of all, yourself. You can be proud of yourself and what you're doing in this industry. And what I'm here is to show you how to do that. And by the end of this challenge, you will be able to basically get started and get moving in solar. For some of you guys who are already in solar, then this will probably give you a little bit of some added ideas and opportunities, regardless of where you're at in solar. Okay, so one of the things I do ask, because we're going to try to get into our rules. I always have to let the people know what my expectations are too. So one of the things I like to have is just real quick, I'm going to get more into these, is that we participate. For me, I don't just want to talk to a computer screen. I love participation. That comes in two ways from you guys, which are very helpful to me. Number one is I can see you guys. I know some people say, well, Brad, I'm not in a place where I can turn my camera on or my mic. That's fine. I get it. But if you are, I appreciate it. It actually makes it a lot easier for me. It's like I'm talking to people, The second thing is, when I ask questions, that you do participate in the chat. If I'm asking you to repeat things in the chat, there's a reason I do that. I don't just say, hey guys, repeat this in the chat for no reason. We all know if you hear something, there's only so much you can remember, right? But when you hear it and write it down, you take that micro action, it's for you guys. It's to help you remember those points. So I will be asking you to do that. So, let's start it off in the chat. Maybe you just put your favorite emoji, a smiley face, or you can put a fire sign or whatever it is, just to get started, just to get you guys used to putting stuff in the chat. So some people like to say, Wayne put a little money sign, Leah put pizzas, or I don't know, little, something's horns. Okay, great. Okay, so over the next 5 days, I'm going to show you about the solar industry. We're going to get into that today. So by the end of the first or second day, you guys will have a pretty good idea. I know one of you guys are saying you're a financial planner, you're evaluating the industry. By the end of day one, maybe day two, you'll be able to see, does this make sense or does this not make sense? So I want to quickly get to that point where you understand that. If so, by the end of this week, I'm going to make sure you have everything that you need to know to start making money. In this industry, the average commission is $6K. So by the end of this week, you'll be in a place where you'll be able to start, and that's 6K for an independent rep, not someone working for someone else. So I want you to write that 6K in the chat. So I want you to remember that number, 6K. One of the things and I'm not the type of person, I don't want to make false promises. I don't want to paint this industry as something it's not or what it is. I'm going to try to be very straightforward with you, but I will promise you this one thing. If you ask questions, I won't hold back. I'm going to give you the full answer. I will, in all ways during this time, try to share as much valuable content as I can. Of course, we are limited. We're doing an hour a day. So that's going to be the only limiting factor. But before I do that, I do want to do a quick survey. For any of you guys who have already been in solar or are currently working in solar, please write solar in the chat so we kind of get an idea, survey the room. If you're new to the industry, you can write newbie in the chat, NEWBI, newbie in the chat, so we can kind of see who's there, how many people we have. So if you're new to, if you've been in solar, write solar, and maybe if you've been in solar, write like how many years, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, so we kind of know. So I know Brad said he's been in solar, so that's cool. Newbie, Benjamin. All right, great. So we're getting to see a little bit who's here. Solar kind of, okay, Ravi, newbie. All right, so we got a mix of newbies and others. Okay, great. All right, so I want to talk to you guys now, kind of get into some of the details. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the opportunity. Right now, I believe solar is probably one of the most exciting opportunities for the average person. And what do I mean by that? I, like many people, have been involved in crypto passively. Wayne will kind of tell you. I'll tell you my opinion of myself in crypto. I did a ton of research on it. I feel like I know 95, more than like 95% of most people, but then I feel like I know very little. It's just the truth. I feel like I've done so much research, but I feel like I know very little. You know, I look at AI. I look at these emerging technologies and emerging industries, but the truth is, for the average person, getting into AI, getting these things is not easily accessible. Solar is much different. It doesn't matter if you have a Harvard degree or you have not even a college or high school degree. There are people making really good money, and there's a lot of opportunity in this industry for just about anybody. Last year, the solar industry grew 24% alone, and that was during a down economy. At the same time, real estate was down 28%. So solar up 24, real estate down 28. So that's a pretty big difference. So we'll talk a lot about this a little bit later, about why solar, especially tomorrow, we're going to get into this in depth, about why even in a very up economy where, like, it was very interesting. You guys may know during COVID, construction and home improvement was huge because people were like just sitting at home like, I don't know what to do, but they were making money working from home. So construction was booming, actually, like residential construction. Solar was crushing it during that time. When the economy dipped in the last year and a half, solar didn't have, not even a small dip. It even increased more. Why? Because solar has programs both during up economies and down economies that work for everybody. But I'll get into those details. But one thing we can say is that, like, while real estate lost over 100,000 jobs in the last year, that solar has gained jobs, and we'll get into those numbers in a minute. Some other things. Solar provides good job security. We're going to go through the numbers today. I'm just going to mention them now. 40-year growth trajectory. While other industries are going up and down, solar's got a pretty growth trajectory. And this isn't like by happenstance. It's by government regulation. It's by technology, increasing costs coming down. So we're sort of in the sweet spot right now with that tipping point, for those who know that term, where even for me, who's been in it for over a dozen years, when I look back, I was like an early adopter, someone who got into the industry early. But now we're seeing the people with the industry where it's just 4% market penetration it's like right on that verge of like massive growth right now. But we'll get more into that. I think the main things that solar has done for me, I like what the other Brad said, is 2020 for him, he said, was a game changer. So I love that he said it was a game changer, because for so many people who are used to doing in-home appointments, even residential and commercial, because I've done worked a lot of businesses over the years too, even done some utility scale projects. Everything was in person. But in the last several years, as many of us know, with being able to do meetings like this, Zoom, remote work, it's like changed everything. Like you can be working as long as you have three things: a phone, internet, and the phone, internet, and a computer. You can pretty much like do solar anywhere in the world. You can go on vacation to wherever you want to go, sit on the beach, and you can call your clients, do your work, send your proposals. And I love that about it. And right now, the average commission for solar in the US is $6K, $6,000 on average for a solar commission. In some areas, it's even higher. So you don't have to close, 20 jobs a month to make a comfortable living. It really depends on you and what you're trying to do, with your life and how ambitious you are. And we'll get into that math a little bit. But I can tell you, the guys I've worked with on average are closing 4 to 6 deals a month. So even if you're at the low end of 5K a month and you're closing 4 deals, that's still 20K, right? If you're at the high end, and I say the high end, we're going to have my friend Terry join this week, and we'll talk about the month that when she did $1 million month, over $1 million in 1 month, and how she did it. So there is, for people who are willing to like go far above and beyond, there's tremendous potential, financially in that regard. And I'm going to share with you exactly how you guys get to doing 0 deals a month, to doing a couple a month, to doing consistently 4 to 6 deals a month and more if you want to grow and expand a company. All right. So what we're going to get into the challenge is, basically, I'm going to break down the next 5 days real quick. Then we're going to jump into today's agenda, where the industry is at, right? How you can fit what business model that you'd be doing. So sometimes like you work in an industry, you don't even know what your business model is. I'm gonna explain to you what the different business models are, where you fit. And I'm going to show you what everything I have put together over the last now 14 years, again, of owning my own sales and installation company. So I'm going to show you what lead generations work, how to present a solar proposal to a homeowner in an honest and ethical way. Guys, this isn't an industry. It's as simple as this. Hey, Mr. Homeowner, you're paying $350 a month on your electric bill. It goes up unpredictably every month and you have no choice on it. Here's another option. This option is less money. You're going to save money on this every single month. So your bill maybe can go, depending on how they do it, maybe goes from 350 to 200 or 250. So instant savings, or maybe they want to take advantage of government incentives and knock out that bill altogether, right? So we're going to talk about all the different options that are available, and we're going to go through that. So, okay, I talked about the lead generation formula. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure how to get to your first commission. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about how to scale, how companies have scaled from just doing, your 4 to 6 a month to how companies scale to doing hundreds of K to millions a month. We'll talk a little bit that towards the end of it. So for those who are really serious and thinking, hey, I don't just want to do 4 or 5 or 6 a month, I want to scale a company. We'll talk about that towards the end of this 5-day challenge as well. Okay, so hope you guys are excited. A couple quick housekeeping tips. I'm going to jump right in. Meetings start 1 p.m. Eastern each day. Please show up on time. I love you guys who showed up early. That's a big deal to me. I like to be able to talk and to introduce myself, get to know you guys before the meeting. So thank you for that. If we can show up early each day, it's a big benefit. Like I said, cameras on, mic's muted. That's important. Be in a quiet place. So not driving, not having the TV in the background. If possible, I know we have kids and other things, the kids not running around behind us. Giving it your full attention does make a big difference. I found that I've done literally hundreds of Zoom meetings over the last several years. And there's just a difference when you can tell someone is in a meeting like this and they're not really paying attention. They are. So it's an hour. I'm just asking for an hour of your attention, guys. And this isn't for me. This is for you. So you guys can, take your life maybe to another level in this industry. But again, you guys have to be participants in order to do that. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. I'm going to try not to go rambling too much. I have a tendency to do that. I love telling stories, but sometimes the stories are very helpful. But I'm cram a lot of information in just a few days. So each day, I'm going to give you micro actions. And these micro actions are so you can build, it's for building you, taking steps towards getting moving and, getting going with solar towards, that major first step is like earning your first commission. If you're in solar, it's like maybe towards getting consistency, and, we'll talk about that. Also, last little housekeeping note, we do have the VIP backstage pass. I know for those who did it last time, I had just amazing reviews and feedback from everyone who did VIP last time. It is an upcharge, so these meetings are free, but if you want to do a VIP, I think the upcharge is it, Wayne, can you drop the amount I forget how much it is now, but
it's 47.
It's 47. Thank you. I couldn't remember. So VIPs, we meet after each meeting each day, and you get a lot of benefits as well. We do our success work. We meet, we do Q&A. It's about a half hour after each session each day. You do get lifetime access to the recordings as opposed to just 1 week, which is what we normally do on these meetings. And you get a one-on-one planning session with me where we can go over what your goals are in solar. We'll do a planning session. And I usually charge kind of like mucha bucks for like these one-on-one sessions for my clients. This is just included with the VIP. I've had many people tell me, heck, Brad, just having access to you for that one-on-one was well worth or beyond what I paid for the VIP. So, so again, it's not too late. Leah, if you can drop the link here in the chat, that would be great. If you want to stay on for the VIP. And again, of course, these events are all still free. The VIP is really for those of you like, man, this is interesting. This makes a lot of sense. I kind of want to be fully invested as much as I can right now. Like, I'm more serious. Like, that's for who the VIP is for. Okay. And lastly, before I forget, we will be giving away something special on day 5. We'll be announcing that later, but you have to stay to day 5 to get this sort of special gift we are giving for day 5. Okay. So I'm going to try to jump into the nitty gritty of the solar industry, where it's at now, but I also want to tell you like my journey in solar and where I started and where I have come over the last 14 years of solar. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. Are you, you're not sharing your screen at all, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah, I will share my screen a little bit, but not yet. Okay. So, all right. So, all right. Before we jump in, I just want to keep you guys active. So in the chat, I want you to just write, the word story. Because I think whether you're doing solar, insurance, financial services, whether you're in real estate, no matter what you're doing, at the end of the day, it's the most important story. The story for my homeowners are, how can you take care of your family better? By continuing to pay more for the same electricity that you can get with solar, or by choosing solar, lowering your electric costs, getting a cleaner, better way of getting electricity for your family, which is a better situation for you and your family. It's not, I mean, you think about it like that, right? You understand, man, this isn't a hard decision that homeowners have, that businesses have, right? So no matter how it is, it's like, what story are you painting? So my story is, I was trained as an urban planner. I worked for the government, but in truth, I had never had a job before I got into solar, earning more than 50K in a year. I was married. I still am married. I've been married for actually over 14, this is in April, will be 15 years. So, so I was married, I was working as an urban planner, and at the end of the day, we just weren't making enough money to like basically earn ends meet. As you know, $50,000 a year is not a lot of money. And I was helping this handicapped woman out. She had this very strange like issue with like, anything jerked her or like she moved. It's almost like osteoporosis, but she could like break bones and like do things like unbelievably easily. So like I used to like take her to her appointments and stuff like that. I used to drive her places. I had a stick, and she couldn't believe that I could drive a stick more smooth than people had an automatic back then. But I was like, I used to love driving a stick, but that was a long time ago. I used to do her. I used to deliver food. this is before we had like, Instacart and whatnot. I used to work doing deliveries and all that. But I was always working like 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And I remember that feeling, like when bills would come in back then, because I had college loans, I had credit card debt, I had all these things. And I remember seeing the mail on the table. This is like one of my most vivid memories. And the bills would just pile up. And I would literally be afraid to open the bills because I knew I couldn't pay them. I wanted to pay them. I wanted to be responsible, but at the end of the month, like like we barely just had enough money to pay, like buy groceries, let alone pay like, all this extra stuff. And so if you guys have ever felt like that, where you see the bills and your heart sort of drops, like if you've ever felt like that before, and you write bills in the chat, because I feel like a lot of people have felt like that and been in situations like that before. So, and I remember when we used to get food, like I remember we used to get food, put it on the kitchen table. My wife and I would just, before we put it away, would say like a quick prayer, quick thank you, because we were like, wow, we're just grateful. Like every month we have like money to buy food at the end of the day. So that's where I was before solar. I saw an advertisement on Craigslist. This was way back in like 2010. And it was to sell solar. It was to work with Home Depot and the Home Depot solar program at the time. And this was back when BP, British Petroleum, had the Home Depot contract for the whole East Coast, from Massachusetts to Florida. And I didn't know anything about solar. I didn't have any sales training. I didn't know anything, but all I knew was I needed a change. I knew I didn't want to work in my government cubicle anymore, that little gray walled, half carpeted thing in that big room. I didn't want to sit and keep my head down and get my pension, wait 20 years. It just wasn't me. Like that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I jumped in, and within a few months of doing solar, my income in solar alone surpassed everything else I was doing. Everything else I was doing, my income in solar compass all that combined. And I was able to quit everything else I was doing, stop everything else I was doing, and focus exclusively on solar. And the crazy part was, if you had asked me before that, I kind of felt like that my debt I had at that time was like just going to be like a part of my life forever. And within like literally a few months, once I was full-time in solar, I had paid off 100% of all my debt, like 100%. Well, except for my student loans, which I paid off a few years later because I was on a monthly plan. But other than that, I had paid off all my credit card debt, everything else I had paid off. And I did, a few years later, pay off my student loans. But then, interestingly enough, I found that the whole country, which Home Depot had all the East Coast at the time, I became, in less than a year, actually, almost I think it was like 8 months of work, I was the number 2 sales rep in volume for the entire, number of sales for Home Depot for the whole country. They flew me actually to Orlando, Florida. I went to Disney World. I got this award right here that you see. That was way back then. And, I felt pretty good. I was like, my life was starting to change. But this was the other thing I felt. I also felt, man, I am working really, really, really hard. I'm making this company a lot of money. And after about a year or two, I was like, maybe my boss will promote me, make me a sales manager or something like that. Like myself and one other guy in my company in the state I was in, which was Massachusetts, we had 22 sales reps in the state. And me and one other guy did over 50% of the sales in Massachusetts, me and one other guy. Kind of, everyone talks about the 20/80 rule, right? Like it wasn't 20/80, it was like 10/90. Like we literally did like almost all the volume, like over half the volume for the state. But my boss wasn't having it, so I just started to start my own sales company. And I'll tell you this, like I remember driving down the road one day and I had just done a solar deal. I just pulled my car over. I didn't know where I was. I literally just pulled my car off the side of the road. I saw like a little path going into the woods, and there's lots of little stuff like that where I'm from. And I just got out of the car and started walking. And I stopped in the middle of that trail. And it was sort of surreal. I picked up the phone and I called my dad and I was like, hey, Dad, it's like, I'm going to start a solar company. And he's like, of course he wasn't like, oh, that's a great idea. He was like, you only have a little bit of experience in this. Maybe you should get some more experience. Do you have money for this? Can you do it? What happens if you fail? Da, 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 right? But eventually I was like, yeah, I know everything you're saying, but I think I can do it. And I was fortunate enough for at least him to say to me, okay, go for it. Like, go for it. Like, I believe in you. I know not everybody has that, but those words to me meant a lot. Just having one person there who was willing to support me, even if it wasn't financially, but willing to support me like emotionally, it meant a lot. And I did it. I'm not going to pretend it was easy. I'm not going to pretend everything was smooth. I'm not going to pretend I didn't make over 100 mistakes, but I ran that company for over a decade. I started off just doing solar sales. And the interesting thing was I knew after the first year we were doing okay. It was just my wife and I. Like, I started the way many people start. I was just like literally walking around knocking doors. Like, you know what I mean? I was just like, hey, have you heard about solar? That's how I started because I didn't have any money from marketing or anything. And after about a year or two of the company, not even about a year, my wife and I were like, hey, we were renting up until that point of our marriage. We were thinking, let's buy our first house together. So we were thinking we're going to get a starter home. We will, get something small that we can afford and then maybe upgrade, right? Right? Maybe upgrade to our dream home eventually. And I remember going online and my wife had given me like certain criteria that she wanted. She had said things, well, Brad, I want a home that's got, what did she say? She said, I want a home that's got fruit trees and a well. And I was like, fruit trees and a well? Like, where are we going to find a home with fruit trees and a well? Like, we lived in the Boston area. Like, every home was on like, public water. And for me, I just wanted a home that had good southern facing roof with solar because I've been in solar a few years. And I thought, oh, get a starter home. And I remember seeing a home online one day that met like all these criteria, but it was a little further out and it was way more expensive than like anything we could afford. Like, just way, way more expensive. It had a swimming pool. It was on a 5-acre plot, like all this stuff. And this massive like 5,500 square foot house. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, one day I'll get that house. Like, that would be my dream house, right? And that is where I'm standing right now, in that house. But I didn't buy or start a house and get the house. What I found out when I met with my accountant, I was like, yeah, we're looking to get a house. And I was trying to figure out what we can afford. Basically, he was like, Brad, do you guys realize how much money you made? Now, this is me. I never made more than $50,000 a year in my life. So he's like, do you realize how much money you guys are making? And I was like, well, yeah, I know we're doing okay. And basically between my wife and I that year, we had pulled in about $500,000, take home. And I was like, oh, he's like, you can afford that house. No, I didn't even like really believe him. But like, I was like, I submitted the application to the bank to get like the mortgage approval. And the bank was like, oh yeah, you can afford it. Like, they just came right back like, yep, you can get that house. And to me, it was like, I just can't believe that, like, I didn't even, like they call like this thing imposter syndrome. Like, that's someone else's life. That's someone else who can afford those things. That's someone else who can live that kind of life. Like, I never thought like I could live that kind of life. At least not like at that point in my life. But we got approved. And then, I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Like, something was going to go wrong. Got approved. And we ended up not just buying the house, we ended up buying the house. And then the owner owned the 68-acre parcel behind the house. And he's like, well, I'm trying to get rid of this too. So I negotiated a side deal with him to buy the 68 acres of land that was, adjacent behind the house of forest, basically. And I bought that cash. And it was just like, I remember we moved into the house and the first time I swam in that swimming pool and just laid back. I never owned a pool in my life either. I was like, it was just surreal that I went from someone who could like not even pay my bills and was scared of the mail to someone who could be living in a house like that. And have employees working for me and being able to provide and give back a lot too. Because my wife and I started getting involved in a lot of like different charitable and, different organizations like that. And then, as you may expect, the first thing I did for my house was put solar panels on it. And I'll show you my bill a little bit later when I share some slides with you guys. Like, I had bills like this summer where my bill is like negative $1,500. Now, as I said, for you guys who are on early, I use electricity to heat my home in the winter. So I need to have these big credits saved up. That's why I put a lot of solar panels on for the winter time. So, I'll tell you one more thing about the house, and then I'll move on. Which was when we lived in the previous apartment, my wife used to go for very long walks. And for me, I don't mind going for a walk with the wife, like that's nice. But she's like a marathon walker. She would go off for like 2 hours at a time. For me, it's like that was a lot, right? But like I used to always feel concerned because she's like 5', 5'1", walking by herself. We didn't live in a bad city, but it was still a city. So I used to be concerned, and she used to go to a field, like a ballpark, baseball field. And for her, she would walk to the field and walk around that field for like an hour, and then walk back home. And if you see the land we have now, I've built trails all around the house, to the forest, all this stuff that she can walk, and she never even has to leave the property, although there is a lake that she crosses the street to and goes to sometimes. But that was like being able to give that to her, like that meant like the world to me. And like one of the things I personally do is I maintain those trails, like, going all through those acres and acres of trails going through the woods for her. And for me, I'll tell you, like, I know a lot of people, like I have a friend and he's in solar now. And like, if you see him on Instagram, he's got this massive following and he's always in his Lamborghini and stuff like that. And it's like, that's good. Like, I'm happy for him that that's how he wants to live his life. He leases a Lamborghini. I bought my last 2 cars cash. So like, there's different ways of living life. And I don't drive anything fancy. I'm not going to pretend I do. I drive it's a new, but it's a, what do you call it? A Honda Ridgeline pickup. Like, it's nothing special, but that's what I want to drive. Although I will tell you this, guys, some of you guys may like not give me crap about this, but I did put a, what do you call it? My deposit on my Cybertruck. So I'm still waiting on my Cybertruck. I've never owned any type of flashy car, but I do like the Cybertruck.
You're in solar. I think you can get away with that.
Yeah, I know. One of my cars is a plug-in electric vehicle. So yeah, there you go. So with that said, like I said, the house was great. Feeling good about myself, the success, the money, the freedom of being able to work from home. All that stuff meant a lot to me. But I think the thing that meant the most to me, I realized over all these years, was 2 things. One, it was like I would feel good about myself, that I owned my own business, that I was able to do my own thing. And 2 was, I think the thing I enjoyed the most, which is where we come in today, was like I loved training people, helping people, whether it was helping homeowners go solar or training my staff. And, one of the things I can say about this, about owning a company, when I started, my first 5 major employees were with me the day that we sold the company over 10 years later. And like, that to me meant something, that like we could have that sort of relationship. And many of those people are still my closest friends. I consider them family till this day. So that's why one of the reasons I transitioned and why I've been doing this the last 2 years is because this is where I get joy out of it now on this side of the business. Okay. That was a lot. That was my backstory. Hope you've, and I don't think my backstory is that much different from a lot of other people I've talked to who have been successful in solar. And again, I'm not going to claim that everybody that gets into solar is successful. My goal though is everybody I work with in solar is. Okay. So let's sort of jump in there. I know I did a lot of talking there. So I want to ask you guys maybe to write in the chat if you guys, are looking for a change right now, maybe to go from someone, maybe you're being successful, maybe you're already making good money, but if you're looking for that change in 2024 and you're open to a new opportunity, I want you to write change, because here's the truth. Write change in the chat, guys, because if you do nothing, nothing will change, right? That's the one guarantee in life. If you continue doing the same thing, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? But we need to make changes in order to do that. I believe in this industry, which is why we're having this challenge doing this event today. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys now. I might need your permission, Leah. I do. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys now and sort of talk about where we're at.
Okay, I'm giving you the permission now. Just give me a
Okay,
moment.
thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
So before I do that, I want to share a story real quick. This is about Warren Buffett. I heard something pretty recently, and he was talking about when he was in college, him and his roommate started at the exact same place. They were both good students, top, at top schools, whatnot. And he said his roommate was just as smart as him. So they both had an equal beginning. His roommate went into the steel manufacturing and steel, whatever it is, the steel industry. He went into obviously financial services. His roommate made it to the peak of his profession, the peak of steel. He made it to the peak of financial services. But what's his roommate's name? Warren Buffett's point was he chose the right vehicle for success. He's like, you have to know what industries are hot and what industries are not hot. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. I want you to put this in the chat. 100 years ago, 101 years ago now, in the year 1903, what do you guys think the number one industry in the world was 100 years ago? In 1903, the number one industry. What do you guys think the number one industry in the world? Right in the chat. And this is kind of, some people, think, oh, it must have been textiles, or was it the Hudson Bay Fur Company, oil? That's a good guess. Oil's a good guess. 100 years ago. And in part, I'll tell you, Benjamin is actually in part correct. So let me share my screen. I want to play a quick video for you guys. You guys see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay. I think I need to unmute it.
You know what the biggest industry in the world was in 1903? Beavers. Very close. Whaling was the biggest industry in the world in 1903, and whaling disappeared overnight because the whale oil wasn't required anymore. You know what the biggest industry...
So someone wrote oil. In a sense, oil was the biggest industry in the world, but it was whaling and the oil that was produced from whaling 100 years ago. But then guess what happened? You could drill a hole in the ground and get these massive supplies of oil. So all of a sudden, the biggest industry in the world disappeared overnight, right? So what does that mean? You need to be ready when the economy changes, when things change. You need to be ready to shift and make sure you're not left behind doing, doing what people were doing, years and years ago. All right. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen. I want to talk about some facts with solar, what's happening right now. So where are we right now? Everybody is consuming more and more electricity every single year. People are using tablets, electric cars, electric heat pumps. The average, in my state, the average home just a few years ago was consuming about 8,500 kilowatt hours in a year. That has gone up. Why? Even with efficient lighting, even with all these amazing things that we have right now, we have electric vehicles. We have more and more people just using more and more electronics. We switched to, like my home, where I'm using a heat pump right now to keep this room I'm in nice and warm. I'm not using the oil, even though it's what? I don't even know what it is in Massachusetts right now. It is, well, it's a balmy 35 degrees right now. The temperature went up from 9 or whatever it was last night. So where do we get the power from historically? Historically, we get power from oil, gas, nuclear, hydro, but that has been rapidly changing over the last few years. Nuclear power plants all across the country, especially where I'm from, are being decommissioned, and they're not being built anymore. So I don't care what your thoughts are or what my thoughts are on nuclear, they don't matter. What matters is what's happening, and nuclear power plants are being decommissioned and they're not being built. Coal power plants are like just as quickly being converted to natural gas, because after all, we're gonna have an abundance of natural gas. Although that's not true, we found out in most parts of the country, because we were talking about before we started, we don't have access to the natural gas in all parts of the country. So we have major shortages there. Okay, we can build hydro dams and destroy entire ecologies and, you know, make sort of issues. Yeah, in the Northeast, we have to buy power from Hydro-Quebec. From Canada, we import electricity because we don't have enough supply. Our demand has gone up, our supply has gone down as we decommission power plants. That causes the price to go up, and that is what's happening all across the country. So what's happening at the same time? Government incentives, and the government is saying, well, we need renewable energy. Again, this isn't my opinion. This is just what's happening, right? So you have massive programs to incentivize solar, and you have the price of solar electricity coming down at the same time. So I'm going to read this from you. The International Energy Agency, the IEA predicts that the total renewable base capacity will grow by 50% between now and 2030. And that over half of that's going to be coming from solar. And right now we're at a 4% solar market penetration, just 4%. By 2035, that number is going to add a 0 to it, 40%. So we're going to go from 4% to 40% in the United States over the next 10 years. How does that happen? It happens because of massive exponential growth that's happening right now. So let me share some pretty cool slides with you. So one of the areas of the growth is going to be in job opportunities. Let me pull open this. You guys see my screen? All right. So guys, I want you to type job growth in the chat. Type job growth in the chat because, again, this is some really cool data here. So what we're seeing for job growth, I just literally took a snapshot. I don't usually show ugly slides like this with lots of words. I just want you to see. Right now, jobs across the solar in the United States is about 200,000. It's supposed to, by 2030, nearly double to 400,000 jobs, and then more than double again to 900,000 by 20. So 5 years later, double again. So job growth in the U.S., solar jobs will double by 2030 and double again by 2035. There was supposed to be a nice little chart here. I don't know what happened to it. It seems to have disappeared, but oh well. Okay. What else is happening? In the last 5 years, solar growth, you can see this is 2018 to 2022, has grown every single year. On average, solar has been growing about 20% a year, 24% just last year alone. We haven't got the 2023 numbers in. From what everything I'm hearing, they're going to be in line with, you know, those previous years. What's happening? Solar 10-year growth trajectory. This graph we're looking at right here. This is a great graph. This is showing where nuclear is in terms of global energy capacity. And you can see where nuclear is in the world. So we already passed, solar's already, not in the future, has already passed nuclear capacity worldwide back in 2017. So years ago, it already passed it. In this year, 2024, it's supposed to pass hydro. Next year, it will pass gas. The year after that, it's going to pass coal. And by 10 years, not even 10 years from now, 2031, it's going to pass all those combined. All those combined. I love this chart because it's just, again, it's showing, not a chart, graph. It's showing where we're going, where the solar industry is going in the next few years. Okay. By 2031, this is a quote. By 2031, global solar energy production will exceed all other forms of electricity production. All other forms. Now, this is global. So I always try to say what's in between US and global. This is global. So this is including major markets like China and whatnot too. All right, here's another. This is another EIA sort of graphs. Again, not a Brad Stoller graph. This is just what's out there on the internet. You can look up all this stuff. US renewable electricity generation. So you can see where this line is, this dotted line here. This is where we're at today. This is 2021. So it's we're maybe a little bit scooch past that. So you can see where solar is at today at 4% of energy production. You can see where it's going to be by 2050. It's projected to be 51%. Over the next 30 years, it's supposed to go from 4 to 50. I love this. So where are we right now today? We are at the tipping point of solar. We are right here. This little tiny yellow sliver is where we've been for my entire little solar career. My little solar career, the last 10 plus years, is this little yellow. Your potential solar career and mine moving forward is this big chunk of yellow. So this is called a tipping point, guys. A tipping point is when something gets to like a critical juncture and it's going uphill, 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 and then you hit the top and it goes downhill, it gains speed, it gains momentum, and just rolls faster and faster and faster. That is exactly why are we at that? What's causing this? Well, for starters, we have an old electric grid. This is a picture of an old substation. Most of our electric grid is old, it's antiquated. It was designed and built literally, 60, 70 years ago. Some of you guys may remember that massive blackout that happened about 15 years ago on the East Coast, where we lost most of the power in those cascading failures. That's because the grid is just, it's designed in a way where, like, if one substation, one area loses power, it'll draw power from the neighboring one. And if that one doesn't have enough, it can cause brownouts, blackouts, and in what happened in New York 15 years ago, massive cascading failures. So right now, the US is in the midst of replacing and upgrading our entire electric grid across the country. Think of where computers were 10, 20 years ago and how much advancement we've had. That's as much advancement we're having in electricity technology that's happening right now. So how are we going to do that? We just saw. The government plans on doing that with solar, wind. If you're down in Texas, I'm sure you see wind farms down there. You're going to see solar, wind, you're going to see energy storage. Those are the three major components of it, solar being the biggest. So how does the government do that? They have incentives. Right now we have a new 30%. Well, that's not new, but it was increased and extended till 2030, the 30% federal tax credit for solar. So what's happening? In solar, we're having the cost. So back when I get in, here's what solar costs per watt or kilowatt hour. Here's where we are at now. So the cost has come down. Government incentives have increased. The need for new generation and grid upgrades is all happening. So all those infinity stones are lining up. So we hit that tipping point and we have that perfect sort of combination of events where we have caused, sort of like at the precipice of this massive tipping point of solar right now. All right. So that is sort of a brief sort of overview of where we stand as an industry on solar. I'm looking at the time. I'm going to show a couple more graphs and then we're going to wrap this up. All right. This is one of the last ones. I just love this slide. Again, I'm going to zoom in on this one. This is where we're at now with solar. And this is where we're going. And this is from a global production. So this is before the little tiny bit of yellow, and this is after. And again, German Advisory Council on Global Change. So again, this is another major study, another major graph on where solar is and where it's going. And you can just see how much of capacity it's going to be taking up over the coming years. I love this chart, 22,100. This is projecting us 76 years into the future of growth. I tell people, what's the growth trajectory of solar? Well, according to this chart, 76 years. That we're going to have continual growth projection of solar across the world. So I think that's a nice little number to write in the chat, 76 years. Who thinks here they're going to be alive 76 years or still working 76 years from now, not going to be retired? I don't think I'm going to make it 76 more years. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I don't know if we have any 10-year-olds in the group. Maybe the 20-year-olds. If you got a 20-year-old, they could be 96 at the time. That's fine. And they plan on living to 120, right? So, but for me, I'm going to be long since retired before the solar boom slows down. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Brad, sorry to interrupt. Just there's somebody trying to join, at least one person. So I just want to make sure there's nobody waiting to try to get in. Someone's having a problem with the link.
Okay, Leah, if you can make sure they get in, that would be great.
No, like no one is in a waiting room.
Okay, keep your eye open. They say they're having problems with the link, so I figured that was it.
All right, guys.
Okay.
So that's where the industry is at. I want to talk about what's happening in terms of commissions. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that the average solar commission in the US right now is $6,000 for a average independent rep. This doesn't mean you're working for someone in a sales company, This is someone who is independent on their own. So let's do some math on that. If your average solar commission is 6K, you're doing 4 to 6 deals a month, then you can see your total commission that you can pull in is 20 to 30K a month in solar. And again, this is you and yourself. This isn't you and you have a whole team of 20 people working for you. That's a totally different scale, totally different economy. We're not talking about that right now. We're just talking about getting started. Okay. So what does that mean? Oh, yeah, I don't know what happened here. So basically, you can quickly see where this can take you to people making, really good annual incomes. You can see how you can hear reps making, I made 150K last year. I made 250K last year. I want to talk about my friend Terry. She's going to be joining us later this week. It says earlier this year, I need to update that to this line. This is last year. She did 33 deals in 35 days. I used to say she did 33 deals in a month, and she corrected me. She goes, well, technically, Brad, it was 35 days. So trying to be more accurate with this. She did 33 deals. And this is why I love Terry. Terry is a grandmother. She is not some young, hustling 22-year-old. If you're a young, hustling 22-year-old, God bless you. She's not. She is a grandmother. She's got kids, and those kids have kids. And she has got all these other things she does in her life. But she did 33 deals in 1 month. Her average commission, she told me, was 7K for those deals. You're probably doing math in your head. I said, well, Terry, break it down for me, Barney style. How much money did you really make that month? Just like, what did you really make that 1 month? She goes, Brad, I made that 1 month about $250,000 that month. I said, that's a pretty good month, Terry. She goes, yeah, it's a pretty good month. It's a pretty good month. Yeah. So this isn't someone who is smarter than you guys. This isn't someone who's younger. This is just someone who figured out the formula, figured out how to get leads. And you know what I love about Terry? I'll be honest with her. I'm honest with you. I've thought a lot about Terry, and this is my conclusion. I'll tell you this. I had one guy that worked for me. He came to an interview once, and I wasn't conducting the interview. One of my sales manager was, but I would always watch people. We used to have a boardroom, and we used to have a room full of people come in. We used to do these interviews, and then we do like a training. And the way I did train is kind of like the way I'm doing this challenge. I used to do them over like a whole week, right? A week-long training so that my guys could hit the ground running. But they weren't guaranteed the job until they made it to a complete training and they satisfied all of our requirements. And I remember after like the first day, there was one guy in the group, he was shy, he could barely look you in the eye. I said to my sales manager, no, like, I don't want to hire that guy. Like he can barely talk. Like I don't want him meeting with our customers. And my sales manager was like, Brad, give him a shot. Give him a shot. I was like, okay. We started him out as a door knocker that summer. He was a college kid. He was our #1 producing door knocker that summer. Next summer, he was in college, so he only worked for us in the summer that year. That summer, he said, oh, I want to try sales. I said, okay, you proved me wrong last year. Go for it. #1 sales rep. Then next summer. This kid, who I felt could barely speak English, barely look in the eye. But you know what people liked about him? When he spoke, even though his words were few and far between, they were honest. He meant what he said, and people trusted him. That was it. Terry, she may not look like some of us in this meeting right now, but you know what? She's got that grandmother effect. Who doesn't trust grandma? No, and you know what I mean? Like it goes a long way, right? So like each of us, like you think of like who are the successful people? It's like, it's not always who you think. It really isn't. But I can tell you both of those people, Terry and Chris was the other guy's name. They were willing to work hard. They did the follow-up. They did what they needed to do. The grandmother effect. Yeah. Wayne says I should put a book about that. Love it. Okay. All right, guys. So let me, oh yeah, I should share one more slide with you guys. This is my electric bill from the summer. It's a little old now, but this is the slide I have. I just want to show you my bill was for that month. I overproduced 837 kilowatt hours, and that gave me a current charges of negative 210, but I had a previous balance of 1,300. So in the summer, I had a negative utility bill of $1,579.86 for my house. So my house was overproduced during the spring and fall because we're getting, I'm using less heating, less cooling. In the summer, I have my swimming pool. So, I use a lot of power and I have air conditioning going, but I kind of break even and overproduce a little bit. But in the winter, I can carry all that extra net metering, which we're going to talk about, all those extra credits into the winter so I can burn those off during the winter time. Now, this is maybe a little bit extreme, but I sized my system for the lifestyle I wanted to have, which was to have an electric vehicle and have, be able to run my home off heat pumps in the winter. So gives you a little idea of that. Okay, guys. So it is about time to wrap it up, but I always like to leave you guys with sort of a to-do. So sort of a micro step, a micro action. And I'm going to ask everybody to start with this action today. And I'm going to show you one more slide. Not slide. Let me share this with you. Hold on, let me do that again. I got to share the, oh, I did share the sound. Okay. I was concerned I don't share the sound on these things.
There are more things. You ever had a gut feeling that maybe you were meant for more because you weren't really sure what the next best steps were to achieve it? Me too. So what's your more? What's your destination? And I'm not talking about just more money or more things. I'm also talking about more love, more joy, more choice, more balance, more trust. What's your more? You ever had a gut feeling that...
So that's the last slide I'm going to share with you guys today, or last thing. I learned something a while back, and I truly believe this. If your goal and your ambition in life is strictly money, it will never be enough. Now, that doesn't mean you can't say, Brad, I want to be a billionaire. That's fine. You can want that, but you have to know your reason why you want that. You have to know what it is that motivates you, that what you truly want, what that thing is inside your head that motivates you to do that. I took a course last year, or maybe 2 years ago now, by Dean Graziosi, for those of you guys who know him. And he shared his story where, excuse me? Suki, you say something? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So he shared this story where Dean said, after he had been very successful doing...
Jesus. Back to the wrong one.
Leah, can you mute Suki, please? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so he had been very successful, but he never understood why. He always said, I just want to be successful. So someone did a activity with him, and it was called 7 Levels Deep. And he said, Dean, why do you want to make money? He goes, oh, because I want to be successful. I've always wanted. Why do you want to be successful? Oh, because, I want to take care of my family. Okay, that's a really great answer. Why do you want to take care of your family? He said, well, I want to take care of my family because, I just feel as a man, it's my responsibility. It's the most important thing to give them the other. Why do you feel as a man it's your responsibility? And they kept on asking question after question. It's called 7 Levels Deep. And when he got to the bottom level, he had this epiphany that sort of changed his life. He said, I grew up in the home where we could barely afford to put food on the table. Many nights I went to bed hungry. I slept on the floor. I didn't have anything. And I didn't have toys. I didn't have all these things that I saw other kids have. He goes, when I got older, I vowed to myself that I never wanted my kids to go through that. I wanted my kids to have all the things I never had. So deep down, that was his motivation. That was his why. Because I truly believe this. If you don't know what your why, guys, in the chat, write the word why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to change? Write the word why. If you don't understand what your why is, it will always be something that's out there, something that is not truly motivational. Oh, I want to make money so I can be successful, take care of my family. It's not enough. You have to know deep down. So this is the exercise I want you guys to do tonight. Or for those who are VIP, we can do it a little bit together right now after the meeting. So what that is what you do is you say, what are my goals? And you say, well, my goal in 2024 is I want to make 100,000, or I want to make 150. I want to make 200. Why? That's where you start. Well, my goal, like Jamie, who may join us later this week, his goal when he got into solar, he was a high school teacher, principal, or vice principal, one of the two. He was a coach at the school, but he never made enough money, was always struggling for bills. And he told me, Brad, my goal was I just wanted to go to my kids' games. I just wanted to be there for them. I want to be able to buy them presents on Christmas and not feel like I didn't have money for it. And the last challenge, he joined us, and Jamie was talking about how now he's in solar full-time, and he has been for over 9 months now. How the last time he joined us was right before Christmas. He just bought his daughter a used car, but he bought it cash as a Christmas present. And he was so excited he could do this. He was now the coach of his kids' sports teams, and he went to all their games. And how solar had just dramatically changed his life. But if you ask him, it wasn't about the money. It was to be the father in the way he wanted to be a father for those kids. That was truly his why. And that's what gets him out of bed each morning. That's what keeps him motivated. Now, I don't expect that to be the same for you. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But my homework for you guys, and I would like you guys to share with this tomorrow. I mean, if you're VIP, we can talk about it a little in the VIP. The homework for tomorrow is to share what your why is. Now, some people may say, I don't feel comfortable sharing my why. That's fine. You don't have to. But if you are, even if it's for yourself, even if you do this and it has nothing to do with solar and you don't go in solar this year, that doesn't matter at the end. This exercise really isn't even about that. The exercise is having this one thing that you can look at each day that is your motivating factor, and that you keep that near and dear to your heart. So that's your homework for tonight. And the way you can do it is literally on a piece of paper or with someone else. You do it 7 levels deep. What do you want? I want to make $20,000. So write 7 levels deep, guys, in the chat. 7 levels deep. That means you say, what do I want? And you write that down somewhere. 7 levels deep. I want in 2024, I want to make $1 million. Okay, fine. Great. You want to make $1 million. Good for you, right? Why do you want to make $1 million? That's level 2, right? That's level 2. Why do you want to make $1 million? Answer the question honestly. Whatever that answer is, why did you give that answer? Give it again. And keep asking yourself 7 times until you get to that 7th level. And whatever that 7th level is, I want you to circle that. I want to make it big. I want you to write it down. And that's going to be what motivates you moving forward. Some of you may say, well, Brad, I just want time freedom. Some of you say, well, I want to buy my first house, right? That's my big, because here's the thing, guys, it does change over time, right? My dream wouldn't be to buy the house I'm in because I'm already in that. You have to upgrade your dreams. They change with time, right? So that's my homework for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's meeting. We've learned, like I said, my goal by the end of the day 1, day 2, is you guys start to get a feel if this industry is going to be a good fit for you. I also, when I did this research about the industry, it honestly excited me more to be a part of it. Like I knew the industry was growing. I knew the industry was doing well. I knew it was like set for rapid growth. And I felt like, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm in the right place. But then like after doing the research, oh, I know I'm in the right place. I know I'm not Warren Buffett's roommate stuck in steel. I am in the right sector that's poised for growth. So if you kind of feel motivated about that, I want you to give it a thumbs up or something like that, right industry, whatnot in the chat. If you kind of feel motivated, like this is the right industry, yeah, Leo put a check mark in, then I want you to think about that. Because I told you guys, like by the end of today, I want you to start to feel, is this something that's right for you? Now, tomorrow we're going to get more into depth about solar, about the business models. We're going to start going deep into like the technical stuff starting tomorrow. So tomorrow we start at 1 p.m. and Eastern, so that's 10 a.m. for you West Coasters. And we're going to hop right now into our VIP. So Leah and Wayne, if you got that list of VIP guys, the VIP, we're going to do question and answers every day. And you will also have the opportunity to work on our micro task each day. So today's micro task, we're going to talk about our goals. Can you drop that VIP link if you already haven't done it? And if you are a VIP, put it in the chat. Because sometimes people have told us in the past, oh, I put my VIP in, but we don't actually see it in time. So if you did sign up for VIP and you do want to be part of these sessions after each day's challenge, let us know so we don't accidentally not let you in the VIP room. But we will be starting that later. Leah, did you drop the link in the chat for the VIP? I don't see it.
Yes, I dropped it, and that's like the second time.
Oh, okay, sweet. So if anybody wants to join that, let us know. It's 47. Again, it's lifetime access to these challenge trainings. Also going to give you the one-on-one with me as well. Okay, guys, it was wonderful. I hope to see you guys tomorrow, and we'll be hopping into the VIP room in just a moment.